Unlocking Ancient Mysteries. That's what we're going to do today with the amazing author Jason Quitt. He's an author of The Gates of Anunnaki, Sacred Geometry, Keys to the Gods. Jason's work explores the Anunnaki, sacred geometry, and the cosmic forces shaping human history. Join us as we delve into how ancient knowledge and celestial connections could define our understanding of our past and our future. In this episode, Jason will share his insights about upcoming appearances at Conscious Life Expo, where he'll expand on these mind-bending topics and connect with truth seekers from around the world. I'm Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. Please welcome back to the Truth Be Told studios, the one and only Jason Quitt. Jason, how are you?
Good. Great to be back.
I'm so happy you're back. It's been a while, and it's always good to see people that I've been, God, it's probably been 7-8 years ago, I don't know, that we met, probably at one of these Conscious Life Expo or probably Contact in the Desert, actually.
Yeah, I think it was Contact.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here. You've written so many books since I've talked to you last time, and before we dive into why you wrote this latest book and what you're going to be talking at Conscious Life Expo, one thing that you really touched on is talking a lot about sacred geometry, and I've heard this many times with many people that have done research, and it's a key understanding to the Anunnaki, and so I really want to know how do you believe they used geometry, and what was the purpose? I mean, it seems pretty complicated for people like me that just barely passed calculus, and all these different other science and math. I've never understood how they were so advanced back then versus some of us that still struggle today.
Well, it's a really amazing topic, and that's what drew me to it, because the systems that we use today, when we think of the calendar, the dating system, when we speak of the 360-degree angle, when we speak of time itself, the base 60 model of time, you have 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour. You have this breakdown of numbers that are given to us by the Sumerians. So we're actually using a system that's created by the Sumerians. And are they the creators, or did it come from before them? We really don't know. We just know that we have evidence that the Sumerians were using these type of base 60 numbers, and base 10 as well. But the number 6 in particular was very special to the Sumerians. And when we are looking at Sumerian texts, for example, they're often speaking in numbers in this base 60 system. And when you start multiplying or adding these numbers based on 6 together, you start getting these kind of like hexagonic patterns,
Right.
which is very much the signature of the flower of life. And they would place a lot of their artworks, a lot of their myths, they would even use these numbers in their mythologies. And so this is what drew me to kind of searching for these answers of sacred geometry in these very ancient texts that not many people even look at. I mean, we can just kind of glaze over it, and we have all these ideas of, the Anunnaki, which is very popularized.
Right.
In our communities here, basically because of Zachariah Stitchin and Eric von Daniken. We grow up with, the 12th planet and the gods coming from heaven, or Nibiru, the 12th planet. So we have this kind of like science fiction idea of the gods, of them coming from another planet to Earth, giving us knowledge, giving us everything that we needed to build society or build civilization. And even in the ancient texts, it talks about that. It talks, especially in the Sumerian text, or about the Anunnaki, that they came and they actually gave this type of knowledge to humans. So we have this knowledge, but we really don't know where it comes from. And this is what my latest book, The Gates of the Anunnaki, sets out to explore these answers because we have the mysteries. So the mysteries are in our hands.
Hmm.
And now we just have to say, well, what are these mysteries and how can we place them in our civilization? How did they come to be? And I kind of stepped away from, especially in these books, I stepped away from the idea of space aliens from other worlds. And what I did was I went back and I reread all these texts, the source materials of these tablets, and we basically broke them down from the eye of, I would say, mysticism or the eye of symbolism.
Right.
So basically, the esoteric hidden knowledge within these texts. And when you start reading these ancient texts, they could be 3, 4, 5,000 years old. And they have the same type of characteristics that we find in later texts. So if we go to like biblical texts or Greek texts, it has this very same feel, this allegorical knowledge that is in every single line, especially related to Egyptian texts. I see a very close connection with Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Egyptian texts. There is this incredible synergy between the two. So I really kind of did a deep dive into this through the eyes of mysticism. And it was with that eye that I started to find that there was a completely untold story in these texts. And it had to do with cycles of time and the stars. So it's very much connected to the as above, so below principle.
Hmm.
And they would encode not only star knowledge, like the movement of the sun and the moon and the planets in the zodiacs or in the different constellations, which were the gods. If you read these ancient texts, the gods were the stars. Like they were interchangeable with it.
Right.
So if you were talking about like say like Marduk from the Babylonian time, Marduk was also known as the planet Jupiter. And when the planet Jupiter came into the night sky, they said Marduk is Nibiru, because Nibiru means the crossing. So the planet Jupiter is crossing through the heavens. So I would say there's a lot of interpretations of these texts, but there's when you keep going back to the source material and reading it, it becomes very obvious that they're talking about movements of planets, movements of stars, and the wars in heavens is
Right.
basically creation stories of how we came to be. So this is where my research has led me, but there was also a deeper understanding when it came to the Sumerian text because they keep using these numbers. They keep using numbers over and over again in this kind of base 60 model. And you can go back to examples specifically in the King's List, which basically talks about the kings that ruled pre-flood, the Sumerian King's List, and it goes back 241,000 years. So you have all these numbers associated with kings, and they're all based on 60, 600, and 3,600. So all these base numbers are that's how they measured these years. But those numbers are also found in the Epic of Gilgamesh. They're also found in the Descent of Inanna. They're found in the Herds of Nanna. The same numbers over and over again are repeated and repeated. So what I did was I put these numbers down on a diagram and I created sacred geometry using these numbers. And those numbers basically explain time and space. It explains the movements of the stars. The distance of the Earth from the moon, the distance of the Earth, the moon, and the sun. It talks about different cycles. So we have the major lunar standstills at 18.6. So these are all very sacred numbers that keep repeating themselves over and over in the text. But when you look and take those numbers down, those same numbers show up basically in our reality.
Hmm.
They define our reality. So that is the greatest, for me, the greatest mystery of all is how did they figure out how to do this? And my personal idea of how this happened is this whole your body is the image of God. And that the sacred geometry of your body is basically the measuring tool of the heavens and earth. And it's from that knowledge, it's a very ancient principle that goes, we talk about Hermeticism and going back to Egypt, but for me, this goes way further back, even into Sumerian times, where they knew about these sacred numbers, these sacred measurements, and they didn't teach it outright to people. They hid it within the allegories of the stories of creation.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so that
That's
that's
pretty amazing.
what that's what the book is about, and we get into a lot of different areas too in there. Like I have a whole section on Leonardo da Vinci because all these numbers that are found, all these sacred geometries that are found all the way back into Sumerian times, show up in our future in the artworks of Leonardo da Vinci. So
Oh, wow.
it's for me, it's like we talk about secret societies
Hmm.
or a group that passes knowledge down through generations. And in my mind, it's the only way that this knowledge has been able to survive for this long. And I think this is what this book and this information is revealing.
No, no, totally. And I think people should pick the book up just to, you know, start doing their own research. And that being said, sacred geometry. I mean, described as a universal language. I mean, it's pretty amazing. But how does the concept to connect the idea of God's sharing the knowledge with humanity? Like you said, it's hard to believe that humanity this long ago, when we're thinking about most of us were dragging our knuckles on the ground,
Yeah.
to understanding this complex, knowledge that many of us don't even know about or have heard about before, unless they listen to shows like ours.
You know, that is the mystery. And it took me a long time to put these pieces together. And it was actually like one of these eureka moments where I was looking at something and I said, I can see something. And how come I didn't see this before? And I'm going to see if I can do something for you. Let me see if I can do something for you, right? Okay. Because I'm going to share. Oh, you have to enable
I
my
just did.
share. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
My intuition kicked in.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to make this big so that you can see this.
Let me
So this is the image that you have.
let me adjust it on my screen real quick so everybody can see
Yeah,
it.
no problem.
There.
Okay. So this is the image that you have actually behind you.
Oh
So I
yeah.
thought it would be appropriate to throw it up on the screen. So this is the illustration. So basically, I trace the image that you have behind you, and this comes from Mesopotamia. It's about 3,000 years old, and it shows Shamash, which is the god of the sun, sitting on his throne, and he's holding a tool in his hand, which is a line and a circle.
Hmm.
And this line in a circle is actually referenced in a very ancient text that goes back almost 5,000 years. It's called The Descent of Inanna. And Inanna is also pictured holding the same tool, which is in The Descent of Inanna, it's called her lapis measuring tool and line. And basically, this tool is to measure the heavens or to measure heaven and earth. It's an astrological tool. So, we're talking about math and we're talking about sacred geometry. And when people look at this image of Shamash sitting on his throne,
Right.
the first thing they say is, oh, this is like the giant god Anunnaki sitting on his throne, and this is what normal people look like. But from an esoteric type of perspective, I can say that this whole image is mathematically based for a purpose that we're not taught about. And first, if you look at these three figures, these three human-looking people, if we measure them, if we measure each person, you can see I put a line. And what I did is I took those lines and I put it on his throne and his body.
Hmm.
And it's the same amount. Okay, so this is like the three aspects of the sun, just like how you have those three discs above him. You have the
Right.
disc
Right.
of Ishtar, the disc of Shemesh, and you have the disc of Nana, which is the moon, the crescent moon. Now, above him, you have these two figures, and they're holding ropes. This is a very ancient motif that has to do with pulling the sun across the horizon. So you have these two pullers that have two ropes attached to the solar disk. So as they pull the rope, they pull the sun across the horizon, which gives us our seasons. It goes from summer solstice to winter solstice and the equinoxes in between. Now, this is the most amazing thing that's revealed in this image, is that you can see that I've drawn lines, especially from his tool, and all these lines, even the rope and the sun disk to his eye, they all have one specific degree, which is 23.5 degrees.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
And for those that are not familiar with what 23.5 degrees means, is 23.5 degrees is the tilt of the earth.
Hmm.
And the tilt of the earth is what gives us our seasons, and it's what creates the illusion of the sun moving across the horizon from northeast to southeast, giving us the solstices.
See, who in the hell would know that back then?
Well, see that is like that is the $1 million question, but it's right here in front of us.
Right.
It's in the artwork itself, and it needs. I don't know how to. Let me see if I can stop sharing here. Okay. Oh, look at that. That's amazing.
Very nice. Very nice.
Going to infinity.
No, that's pretty
But
amazing. And like you said, majority of us wouldn't even think to check that. They would just look and go, oh. And by the way, what was the two little guys underneath the seat?
I'll have to pull that up. But it's let me go right back
I was
there.
curious as it's because they didn't necessarily look human.
No, they didn't. One has now I never really got into it. I'm going to share the screen again
Okay.
just so we can go back
Sorry, I
there.
didn't make you. I should have asked you before, but
It's okay. And I'll
yeah,
blow
they
that
look
up.
like what did they?
Yeah, it looks like a basically like minotaurs.
Yeah, minotaurs. Yeah.
And it's actually very similar to Isis and Nephthys in Egypt.
Huh.
And in fact, the thrones above their heads, if you remember the thrones above Isis's head
Mm-hmm.
and the throne above Nephthys's head. I hope I said that correctly. But basically, these are like the two pillars. The two pillars are the two thrones, and you have these two characters like looking at them. And my interpretation of this is basically the stars. So, one end of the spectrum is Taurus,
Right.
okay, and so
I
this is like
can
the
I can see
winter,
that.
and the other side is Scorpio, you know, and so you have this kind of opposition of the stars in the sky, which define the basically the solstices and the equinoxes.
Because even if you can look, and I have the pointer, as you can
Mhm.
see, one looks like a bowl. Is that a sun versus over here to the right? It's an empty bowl. So I don't know.
Correct.
Yeah. What do you think that interpretation is?
Um, it's
Winter,
usually has to
winter,
do,
summer? I don't know.
it could be winter, summer, or wet season, dry season.
Hmm.
And the pillars could also represent the sun and the moon.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And we still have these traditions in the Masonic traditions where you have these two pillars that represent the sun and the moon. So this goes back a very, very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So, once you start researching this, it's not like, oh, there. Once
There
you
we
start
go.
researching this, it's not like any one culture takes ownership of this information.
Hmm.
It's almost like this information is given to different civilizations over time, and that they have been taught the same ways to encode this information into their texts, into their myths,
Hmm.
into their artwork, and into their architecture.
Do you now? From what I remember, Anunnaki came to pretty much use humanity as slaves for their own good. So, do you think the Anunnaki shared the knowledge intentionally, or was there something where humanity, after Anunnaki left, was when they started picking up this knowledge, like you said, over time?
Right. Well, I would say that the priests, or like the
Ah,
astrologer priests, held this knowledge and passed it down and shared it with different societies. Egypt is a huge reservoir of information like this.
hmm,
So a lot of my information came from Egypt, and then it surprised me that all the similar things that I found in Egypt, again, was even earlier in Samaria. So, but it's different gods
right.
and different depictions or different stories. But when you peel the layers away, it's all the same stuff,
Hmm,
which is really interesting. So, we have this kind of these theories that the Anunnaki were living beings like the Gilgameshes, where they were these demigods walking the earth and giving knowledge. Like there's a story of Ishtar who basically steals, or Inanna, she steals the blueprint of civilization from the gods, just like Prometheus and fire.
that
You know,
old
it's all the
hag.
same. It's all the same theme, same motif. Well, 6,000 years ago, it was Inanna who stole the blueprint of civilization, gave it to the humanity, and the gods were very upset about that.
I'm sure they were. They were not happy. Yeah, many cultures, have similar like myths, about gods and beings from the stars. And do you think this? Do you see this as like evidence of common origin or a universal truth or something like that?
I see it as humanity has a common heritage.
Mm, mm,
And you know, we can take the idea of gods coming down and giving us knowledge and then spreading that around the world. And then you have societies, let's say, across the pond in South America or Central America, where they have stories of people coming over after a flood on a boat and then
mm,
reteaching them society.
right,
You know,
right,
were those humans or were those something else? Unfortunately, I don't think anybody at this point in history could answer those questions.
right, right. It's tough.
And the way that I'm looking at it is the way that these stories are told, they're not told in a way that's actually believable.
Hmm,
For example, the Enuma Elish, which is the Babylonian creation story, it talks about the fights of the gods in heavens and the Anunnaki in heavens, and basically a war going on based on the fact that the creator gods or the Anunnaki were making too much noise. And the gods of the abyss, they liked their universe very, very quiet. So the gods of the abyss said, basically, I'm going to murder all the creation gods because they're just partying and having too good a time, you know? And this is before humanity, by the way.
Mm.
This is before heaven and earth. This is somewhere else. And basically, these wars in heavens create the universe, create the earth, and then we're supposed to now see these godly beings walking the earth. In that sense, it doesn't really gel
Mm.
in my point of view, because basically, like, oh, there's too many stories. But basically, they're fighting, they're tearing gods apart, creating heaven and earth, and then they come down, and then they're kings, like the first demigod, which is Gilgamesh,
Mm-hmm.
which is the same exact theme or the same exact motif as the Nephilim. So the exact same story of Gilgamesh. The whole reason Gilgamesh was hated by his people, um, the whole the whole human population of Uruk hated Gilgamesh because he wouldn't leave their women alone.
He was a perv.
So it literally says in the Epic of Gilgamesh that for a man to marry a woman, they'd have to go to Gilgamesh first.
Oh, wow.
That was so it
Wow.
was the whole marriage. It even talks about it right in the book. Is the whole marriage proposal thing is you have to go first to Gilgamesh's bed, and they hated him. And this is where you get the later stories from the Bible of the Nephilim.
Right.
So you have this kind of continuation of these stories of that part of the world. And but the interesting thing as well is that from the esoteric side of things, this giant can also be seen as the constellation Orion
Hmm.
and the Great Hunter. So it's like there's these kind of like overlapping themes, and people tend to just see one side of things when there's a host of other information that gives you a story of the heavens
Hmm.
and what they really mean. Just like the hunter or Orion is the great hunter, and he's basically stalking the Pleiades or the seven sisters because he wants to take them as his wives, basically. It's this story that's written in the stars. And as the stars appear in the sky, and this is, I think, what we're getting to the root of it, is that when the stars appear in the sky during a very specific time of the year, then you tell that story.
Hmm.
When Orion's in the sky, you tell the story of Orion the Great Hunter and what it means to, um, there's a war in heaven, for example. There's a story in Greek mythology where Orion basically kills all life on Earth. Um, and during that time, when you look up in the direction of Orion, during that time of year, we have a meteor shower
Hmm.
the same time. And what does a meteor shower look like in the sky? It looks like someone shooting bow and arrows to the
Oh,
earth.
yeah. Lit ends, bow and arrows. Yeah.
And so, what if, and this is where Graham Hancock and many other people go with this information, is that what if during that time period, when they looked up at Orion, the great hunter, they saw the bows and arrows being shot to the earth, and one of those meteors hit the planet, killed off all the life, and actually did kill the life on Earth.
Hmm.
That would be a story locked into our ancestral history that we continue to tell that story till this day.
That's a good fish story. I mean, because it's one of those like, I caught a 5-pound bass, but eventually it was 25-pound bass. But I do find these stories fascinating because there always is some truth to stories, even though my dad would say it was a 20-pound bass. It actually was it was still a bass, and it was caught. So I feel there's a lot of truth to many of these stories.
Yes.
I'm curious because you've said there's many stories that you could choose from to tell. In your research, it sounds like you've read many of these. Is there one that really stood out to you that really caught your eye, or you really took interest in more than the others?
Yes, my favorite text that I keep going back and reading is the pyramid text of Unas.
Mm.
And this text is one of the oldest literary texts that we have from Egypt. It's about as old as the pyramids. Okay, so we're talking about like over 4,000 years old, 4,500 years old. And basically, it is the equivalent of the Book of the Dead,
Mm.
but it's specifically written for the pharaoh Unas. And what makes this text so special is that it basically tells you and defines the gods as the stars. So as he's traveling the underworld or he's traveling the heavens, he's given very specific directions on which stars and constellations he needs to pass through in order to reach heaven. And that as he's passing through each of these stars or these constellations, those constellations are also given the names as the gods. So you get to know which constellation is which god. But the even crazier part of this story is as Unas travels through these star systems, he becomes those gods. All right. So
Hmm.
it's this kind of transformation of the pharaoh into the gods to join the gods in heaven, which is in the northern heavens. It's in the northern heavens. This is why the north is the top of your head, the crown, the throne, the North Star. And those stars, the North Stars, are very, very important to ancient mystery religions, especially Egypt, because they were called the undestructible stars,
Hmm.
which means if you look at the heavens, if you look at the night sky in the heaven in the northern hemisphere, um, the northern stars are the only stars that stay in the sky all year long.
Oh,
All the other stars
yeah.
go through their life and death. They rise in the east, they set in the west, so they live and they die. So the stars that were at the northern hemisphere, or the northern stars, those stars were basically the immortal gods, and you could not mess with those gods. They live forever. And so for a pharaoh, they had to kind of move through the stars to reach the heavens above, to sit on the thrones in the northern um, hemisphere of space.
Wow.
So that text, and
Wow.
obviously like the text is huge,
Right.
and it goes to like, all the offerings and all the cleansing rituals and all these other things, but that part, and then the resurrection of Unas, which is the resurrection of the sun. So he comes back as the sun, as Horus, on the eastern horizon in the morning. So he goes through this whole transformational process, and he's also reborn and resurrected as the sun on the east. And this is 4,500 years old. So for me, that text kind of puts a lot of perspective into the mindset of what they believed um, their afterlife was, what their beliefs are based off of. And then from that knowledge, then you can start applying it later into the Book of Dead or the coffin texts,
Right.
or going even further back into history, back to Sumeria when they're talking about creation stories. They're all very much related to this idea of when you die, you basically are a star living in human form.
Hmm.
And that essence, that astral body, what does an astral body mean? Astral means star.
Hmm.
So your star
Yeah.
body leaves your body and goes back to the stars, and you become a star in the Sea of Nut, which is the goddess of heaven. And so your descendants can then look up to the stars and say, "Those are my ancestors. That's where I come from."
I guess that's why we always look to the heavens and say
Yeah.
up there, that's where heaven is. That's pretty awesome. Um, as you can see behind me, this was a ancient site, and I'm curious, the sites that you've been to. I don't know how many you've been to around the world, but was there one place that you went to that after doing your research that you instantly saw sacred geometry influence that just blew your mind?
It's a really good question. I would say that I wish I was more knowledgeable back then.
Yeah, right, right.
Yeah, it's like what I know now, I wish I could have had that knowledge when I was traveling to these places. I really enjoyed Peru,
I've never been. I want to go so bad.
and it's just such a beautiful part of the world. And the symbol of the Inca, the Chicana,
Hmm.
which is like the steps,
Right.
the four directions. I used to wear it like even before I knew any of this stuff. When I came back from Peru, I had a beautiful stone pendant like that, and I would wear it often. I gotta find it somewhere. It's been so long. But that is basically a sacred geometry symbol, in my opinion, of um, creation. It's the cross of creation, cross of time, and it holds a very sacred geometry pattern within it. So, but then again, it's like we always see patterns,
Right.
and I really do want to get back out there. Now that everything is semi-normal, hopefully,
Right.
get back out there and start going to these sites and documenting it. One of the sites I really want to go to is Dendera.
Where I can't remember where that's at.
That's in Egypt.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and basically, that temple, it's from the New Kingdom. It's basically the end of Egypt. And they took all their knowledge of the stars and they placed it on the walls of the Temple of Hathor in Dendera. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's a work of art. Every pillar, every wall is covered in beautiful art. And now that I have the eye, now that I know a little bit more, I really want to go there.
No, I'm with you. I've been going to Europe lately, and I'm going back, but I haven't been to Egypt yet. I haven't been to, I've been, the Machu Picchu and stuff like that. In fact, I just got back from Brazil, and we went to some, these tribes that still living into the forest. But I've not been to Peru, so I'd love to go down, especially if Brian Forrester's leading the way. I would love to go down and hear his knowledge. But um, well, before we get out of here, I want to talk about Conscious Life Expo. But before we do that, I feel like humanity has been dumbed down so much. It feels like the knowledge was much stronger 4,500 years ago than it is now. Um, for, why is that? Why do you feel that humanity has been dumbed down, or has it just been kind of hidden through priests, through government? I'm not trying to get conspiracy theory. I'm not. I'm just trying to think, why is this been so kind of diluted to be able to put into our, society?
I I think, and this is from my own opinion of looking at this, is that I really think that what makes a society or a culture or civilization strong is a core belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, for example, when I go back to Egypt, Egypt was pretty solid for thousands of years, and it's because they had this very strong um, root, this very strong knowledge, this very strong belief system,
Mm-hmm.
and it carried through for thousands of years. So they were educated in this. Now, it's once you lose that education, suddenly the society falls. Right now, we have access to all information. All right. This is like the most incredible time to be
Right.
alive because we have access to, and now
Everything.
we even have access to AI. We
I
don't
was going
even
to
have to
say
go to a
AI. We just ask
library.
AI.
It's incredible. So we have the opportunity to know these things, but you have to have that motivation in you. You got to have that spark in you to actually want that knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people will ask me like going down this road, going down this road of information. I feel like I've taken my audience and I've just shrunk it, you know, because it's a very like esoteric, very niche point of view.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it takes an individual to say, I even want to step into that area of research. Not a lot of people even know about this area of research.
No.
So that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show something new that's very old and discuss it in a public open manner where people will say, wait a second, that's really interesting because it shows you that there's a connection between ancient cultures. And not only does it show you that, it shows you that there's cultures from different time periods located in different locations around the world
Mm.
that have the same knowledge. Well, how can that be?
Yeah. They didn't
You know,
have cell phones back then.
right. So there's still mysteries to be discovered.
And that's what makes us do what we do. And do you think humanity is on the cusp of rediscovering any lost knowledge? And do you think sacred geometry can play a role in the awakening?
I think sacred geometry is the universal language.
Yeah.
And I think that without language, like I was just showing you the Sumerian tablet behind you,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't need to know Sumerian to know that those line up mathematically in a
Right.
certain way.
Right.
So it's bypassing the need to understand their language. So, and look at the new discoveries out of the Amazon. It's like they just found out that the Amazon was inhabited thousands of years ago. There's roads, there's temples, there's millions of people probably lived
Yeah.
in the Amazon, and just recently we thought that was impossible.
Well, let me put it this way. So me and my spouse just bought 1,000 acres of Amazon land in the heart of the Amazon by Manaus, which is right on the Amazon River. It's just north of there, which is, I couldn't even believe when we got it, but there's probably about 3 acres that is fruit trees, and then there's a line of woods, and the rest of it, nobody's been back there.
Hmm.
Nobody's even, I said, well, what's back there? We don't know. Is there water? We don't know. Because it's so thick and just so much land that you don't know what's back there. So I want to put like a retreat there, but we have to do some exploring first. So yes, we don't know that if there's temples. We don't know what's in the Amazon and what's going to be discovered in the future. Hopefully we can preserve this great, gift from the gods of the Amazon forest. But yeah, it's such a huge forest that we don't know what's there. So like you said, mysteries are among us and going to be discovered way past us. So, well, before we get out of here, guess what? Jason's going to be at Conscious Life Expo coming up just 2-3 weeks. Sunday, February 9th, he's going to be in the La Jolla room from 4 to 5:30 talking the secret knowledge of the stars. Give us just a little summary of what you're going to talk about, and so we can get people to get their tickets
Sure.
now because it's going to be busy.
Okay, I am going to be revealing an ancient language of the gods. And when I say that, I'm saying that there is this language of sacred geometry. There's a language of time and cycles that have been left to us in the artwork, in architecture, and myths and stories going all the way back to even Göbekli Tepe.
Hmm.
And I'm going to be focusing in mostly on the Sumerian time period and also the Egyptian and the Greeks. I'm also going to be going to the other side of the world in Mesoamerica, South America, and basically we're going to be telling the story from their eyes of this star knowledge that was so important to them that it's been placed all around the world in stone for us to rediscover. So I'm going to teach you that language of the stars.
Love it. Love it. And hopefully I get to see Jason while he's there. And please, if you are attending, please come up and say hi to me and Jason. We'd love to see you. But Jason, I've known a long time, and just seeing his progression, he's written, I don't know, how many books have you written now?
I've taken a lot of books down. So officially, there's only 3 books up.
But total, have you written?
Total. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
meaning
So three,
how many have you written total?
probably five or six, I think. But again, some old books have been updated and
Right,
put
right.
into new books, especially this one right here. So I'm very proud of the Egyptian Postures book. Um,
Well, we're going to have
so
to talk more about with my Earthly Beings Foundation, my nonprofit. I think some of the stuff that you talk about with the sacred geometry and some other topics, I think we could really put some classes together and really bring some people in to get to know the knowledge that I think people may not want to know, but I think is very important to know our history. So, but Jason, thank you. And where people can they find you on your website, your Instagram?
yes,
Where do they find you?
yes. So my website where everything is thecrystalsun.com. And you could also find me on Amazon. My books, if you just type in Gates of the Anunnaki, Jason Quitt, you'll find it, or Egyptian Postures of Power, Jason Quitt. You'll find it. And I'm most active on Twitter, or X now, and it's Jason_Quitt.
You mean somebody actually got that one before you?
You know what? I didn't even check. I just
Oh, I was going to say,
I
I
just
figured.
separated my name. I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
why I
I
did it.
figured. I was like, it's actually because Tony Sweet, there is a Tony Sweet in Maine that's an
Hmm.
artist, singer, and artist, like painter. And yeah, he had it way before me. And I was like, oh, man. But
I'm I'm back on Facebook and Instagram. I don't use it that often. I was off it for about 2 years. Facebook deleted my
really?
Facebook. Yeah, yeah. And Instagram. And I was blocked from opening an account for about 2 years.
What did you do? I was kidding.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it's going to get better now, it sounds like. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you, Jason, so much. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you in just a few weeks at Conscious Life Expo.
Perfect.
All
Thank
right.
you again. It's good to see you.
You too. And thank you, everybody. And sorry, I have a cold, so I've been sniffling. And Jason was great by not making me talk as much. So, and I think you wanted to hear him more than me anyway. But thank you guys for tuning in. And thank you for the people that also tuned in for the first time. We hope you subscribe, share the show, and tell your friends. Plus, we were going to be at Conscious Life Expo doing a live podcast from there Friday from 9:30 to 10:30 p.m. So we hope you guys take a listen, and we hope you join us there or just listen in. But next week, make sure you tune in right here at 3 o'clock every Friday, and then on Wednesday at 3 o'clock with Bonnie Burkert doing Truth Be Told Transformation. So until next time, we'll see you, everybody. Take care of yourself and each other.